All right, I think we can go ahead and get started. We're 2 minutes early, but everyone is here, and I'm hopeful that if anyone joins us right at 3:15, that they'll be able to pick up where we are. So I want to thank everyone for being here today. I feel like this is the Vermont Rockstar panel of resources, and I feel incredibly grateful and honored for each and every one of you to participate. So thank you very much. The panelists have been organized from kind of broad federal resource to a more narrow resource. And then Philip will be kind of wrapping up just the importance, I think, his final comments to wrap up the conference and how important it is that we all work together. And this conference has just been a tremendous exhibition of that collaboration. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Craig Laporte to introduce himself, and we will move on to his slides.
Great, thank you, Tori, and good afternoon. My name is Craig Laporte. I am the Law Enforcement Coordinator for the U.S. Attorney's Office for the District of Vermont. And I just am grateful for the opportunity to share with you a portion of the Elder Justice Initiative, which is one of the many focus areas of the Department of Justice. The U.S. Attorney's Office is a federal prosecutor's office for the state of Vermont. Our office prosecutes criminal and civil crimes investigated by state, federal, local, and county law enforcement agencies. There are many aspects to the Elder Justice Initiative. Besides enforcement, I want to cover one of those briefly today, involving victim resources. Other areas include outreach, training, research, and other aspects of the initiative. But let me just delve into a little bit of the victim resources. So the U.S. Attorney's Office has long provided a resource guide to help victims identify appropriate resources that are beneficial to them throughout Vermont. Our office has a robust victim services program that includes a full-time victim witness coordinator. They serve the victims associated with the crimes that we prosecute, but there are many victims in the state that need services whose situations may not meet the thresholds of prosecution. Those affected may still need the services and assistance, and this guide is intended to contain those services and assistance for all types of situations, including those experienced by older Vermonters, such as those that are abused and exploited. Tori, can you go back one slide for, okay. So we've recently transitioned this guide to an online interactive platform, and it's located here at vtvictimresources.com. Next slide, sorry. This is what you'll see once you're online. The resource guide is searchable. You can see the search window on the left-hand side. You can use keywords. You can search by geographical location, service type, agency. There's many different options of in the blue there that you can search looking for different services. We continue to build this resource guide and add appropriate listings so that those seeking help can find what they need and gain the support most useful to them. So please take some time to access this guide online and use its resources. Share it with those who can benefit from its content. If you don't see a particular service listed in the guide, please contact me so that we can add that resource. This is an effort that will continue to grow and continue to change as we add the necessary resources into this platform. As all of you put forth an effort to help those that are affected by elder exploitation, in abuse. We can serve the victims with the resources that are most helpful to them in their greatest time of need. And our desire is and hope is that this resource guide serves the victims in that way. Thank you.
Thank you, Craig. We'll turn it over to Matthew and Liza. Bear with me 1 second.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Marichelle Vaught, and I'm a program director with the Community of Vermont Elders. And I apologize for the dog barking in the background. So the Community of Vermont Elders, or COVE, we've been around since 1981. And currently we are a small but mighty staff of 3, actually soon to be 5, with a number of dedicated volunteers as well. And our office is located in Montpelier, but we serve the entire state. And our mission is to promote and protect a higher quality of life for older Vermonters. And we do this through education and advocacy. We have programs designed to educate older Vermonters, their families, the people who work with them, and the general public on scams, fraud, and financial exploitation. COVE houses a senior Medicare patrol program for Vermont. And the amount of dollars lost each year nationally to Medicare fraud, abuse, and errors is $9 billion. So the Senior Medicare Patrol, or SMP, empowers and assists Medicare beneficiaries, their families, and caregivers to prevent, detect, and report healthcare fraud, abuse, and errors. We can receive beneficiary complaints and make the determination about whether or not a fraud, abuse, or error is suspected. And if fraud and abuse are suspected, we then make the referrals to the appropriate state or federal agency for further investigation. We provide programming that will help you understand your benefits and how to read your Medicare summary notice so that you can be more vigilant to these frauds and abuses that lead to billions of dollars in losses to Medicare. And a lot of the issues could simply be unintentional errors, like a procedure was coded wrongly, but we could help look at that with you. And these losses can potentially affect beneficiaries in the future in the Medicare program as a whole. And through the Victims of Crime Act's funds, we also offer programming that can help you recognize consumer scams, romance scams, fraud, and financial exploitation. We can share with you the latest tactics these scammers are using and what you can do to not lose money and become victimized. And through these programs, we share resources and contact information from our partners so you can report your issues to the appropriate organizations should you be targeted. And those organizations are the Attorney General's Office, AARP, DFR, Vermont 211, Area Agencies on Aging, and the Federal Trade Commission, and FAST. So scams and fraud happen every day, and people are targeted every day. So the more information we can disseminate to Vermonters and the more often we do it, the better. These programs can be offered as presentations, group discussions, or one-on-one dialogue. We make sure to present this information in an engaging way, like through our Savvy Seniors Troop, a group of older Vermonters who write and perform humorous skits about these issues, and also through interactive games such as Medicare, Bingo, and Scam Trivia. Other programs we offer are discussions on ageism, understanding it, how to fight it, how it is harmful to communities and health, and how it can lead to social isolation. Learning about state government and how to speak with your legislator, and information on kinship caregiving. We also recognize that online meeting platforms like Zoom or WebEx are the way now for people to engage and socialize, and it can be intimidating if you've never had to use it before. So we offer one-on-one training for folks who are not familiar with the technology and want help navigating platforms. And what's nice about this is that we've had a number of senior centers reach out to us who've started offering virtual programming, and they may not have the capacity necessarily to train their members to use the platform, so we can help them with that. And in terms of advocacy, COVE has been a voice in public policy decision-making through legislative testimony and active membership in statewide advisory boards and committees. Cove, along with many of the panelists here today, was part of a working group to make recommendations to the Older Vermonters Act, an act that could guide and direct providers, advocates, and policymakers toward better and more complete services and supports for older adults in Vermont. And 2 years ago, Cove launched Grow Bold with the support of the AAA's, Dale, National MS Society, and more. Grow Bold is a grassroots movement that actively engages older Vermonters and community members with the legislative process and to be a voice on the issues that affect them, because we learned that when lawmakers are talking about issues while the people those issues are affecting are in the same room, the conversation changes. So people's stories and experience can make strong impacts on legislative decisions. So if anyone is interested in learning more about Cove or participating in an event or program, which are all free, please be in touch with us. And my number and email are on the slide. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marichelle. And next we have Carol Stamatakis to talk about the Area Agencies on Aging.
Great. Good afternoon. I'm Carol Stamatakis. I'm the Executive Director of Senior Solutions, the area agency on aging serving the southeastern Vermont region, and also president of the Vermont Association of Area Agencies on Aging, also known as the V4A. I'd like to provide a brief overview of the services provided by area agencies on aging and focus in particular on how an area agency can play an important role in a strategy to support an older adult to either escape an abusive situation or lower their risk of becoming a victim. So we have 5 area agencies on aging in Vermont, and we each serve a designated geographic region. Our state association has a website, vermont4a.org, that's on this slide. And if you go to the homepage of the Vermont 4A and go to the bottom of that page, you'll see all the regions served by each agency and contact information for each of the area agencies on aging. However, if you are seeking services, as an alternative, you can just call the number on this slide, which is our statewide helpline number, 1-800-642-5119. And by calling that number, you can be connected to the area agency on aging that would be serving the region where the person who you're trying to assist resides. So the services we provide can reduce the risk factors that make an older person more vulnerable to financial exploitation. So we know that elder abuse is more of all types are more likely to occur when strong social supports are not in place to keep us connected as we age. So while anyone is potentially at risk of abuse, some factors can increase one's risk of experiencing abuse. So those include social isolation, social supports that keep us connected are critically important. Another factor is lack of access to support services and community resources. So very often people don't know what resources exist. And this is a case where knowledge is power. And by connecting somebody to those resources and providing that knowledge, it can make a difference. And finally, physical, mental, or emotional needs in carrying out activities of daily living can be a risk factor. So whenever a person needs assistance from another person, that gives rise to a vulnerability that can be exploited if quality care is not readily available through legitimate channels. So this slide shows the core services that are provided by all of the area agencies on aging, but each of the agencies is really designed also to meet the unique needs of that community. So I would encourage you to really look at the website and talk with the particular area agency to see what other services or supports might be available. So the need for services is very often the critical piece that keeps many older adults in abusive situations. And it's also an area of misunderstanding for many people and agencies outside of the elder service system. So some of the areas that you see here in front of you are caregiver support, and that involves we area agencies can connect people with respite grants to help a caregiver get away. They can provide education for caregivers, support groups, health and wellness programs can involve exercise, fall prevention, medication management services, in-home services. Supportive services can include in-home supports. Um, they can involve intervention and support for individuals who are self-neglecting. The area agencies on aging work with the state to support people who appear to be having difficulty in caring for themselves. Um, Transportation is another area where the area agencies can connect individuals to services that can help them get to medical appointments or um, meet other needs. The area agencies provide oversight, administrative oversight of the nutrition programs that include our home delivered meals or Meals on Wheels programs and congregate or community meal programs. And also we provide dietitians who can meet with people in their homes to help them assess possible nutrition issues. One area that's particularly important that area agencies can help with is connecting with public benefits. We know that older adults as a group tend to underutilize public benefits, and that can include things like making sure they're getting the most out of Medicare, and looking at whether they might be eligible for programs like Medicare savings programs, Three Square Vermont, Medicaid. And these are programs that can help people to become more independent financially and help them feel less dependent on an individual who may be posing a risk to their safety. And all of our area agencies also provide some programming around elder rights. We provide some financial support for legal services through Vermont Legal Aid and the Senior Citizens Law Project, and also offer various programs, often in collaboration with other groups like COVE, around elder abuse education and prevention. And finally, I think it's important to appreciate that the area agencies on aging take a person-centered approach in supporting individuals. And so what that means is that the individual who they're serving, their values and preferences guide all aspects of the intervention and support that's provided. And that means a wholehearted listening to the client and really identifying what's important to that client. How do they define quality of life? What makes them happy? What relationships do they value? And a person-centered approach in any situation can help prevent abuse. And the reason for that is that a person-centered approach empowers the client. It empowers the individual. And if we're supporting an individual to live life on their own terms, then we're empowering that individual to make their own choices. And I think what we've learned about any form of abuse, including financial exploitation, is that exploitation is about power and about the abuse of power So anything that we can all do to empower individuals helps to prevent and address abuse. And like everything we do, when all of our agencies work together, we empower the individual that much more. So thank you.
Thank you, Carol, very much. And next, Jamie Renner, please.
Thanks, Tori. My name is Jamie Renner. I'm an assistant.
Oops.
Muted.
Can you hear me?
There we go. You're good now, Jamie.
Okay. So my name is Jamie Renner. I'm an assistant attorney general at the Vermont Attorney General's office. I've noticed two themes from today's presentations. One is that there's a wide variety of kinds of elder financial exploitation. The second is that financial exploitation situations can be really complicated to address, particularly where it's a family member or a caregiver that's perpetrating it. In these latter kinds of scenarios, there are really challenging questions that loom large, like if a family member or caregiver is removed from this older person's life, who will provide the older person with needed care and support going forward? Who will replace a guardian or a power of attorney if that kind of replacement is needed? And how can that older person continue aging in place if they've historically leaned on the perpetrator to live out that goal? And of course, what are the options for addressing the perpetrator's wrongs? What are the options within the criminal justice system? What are the options outside of it? So as we've discussed, no one agency or organization can unpack and resolve all of these questions. Part of the question for this panel is, who or what organizations or agencies can we bring into broader circles of support around and for individuals who have experienced abuse or exploitation? And who or what agencies or organizations in Vermont can help us design and implement these circles? I spoke this morning about the role my office can play in supporting victims of financial exploitation in particular. And my office's related programs and contact information are reiterated on this slide. Tori, though, kindly gave me some time this afternoon to flag that my office, in collaboration with Dale of the Department of Disabilities, Aging, and Independent Living, and several other stakeholders in Vermont, including FAST and the AAAs, we're soon to be releasing a guide for the Vermont public that lays out the various kinds of programs and services that exist in Vermont for those who experience elder abuse and exploitation, and also for those who are trying to help these victims. And that's whether the abuse or exploitation in question is physical, sexual, financial, or psychological and emotional. Certainly, please let me know if you'll be interested in receiving a copy of this to share with your networks and clients. I hope you are interested. I'm happy to circulate this when it's ready. But just as a teaser in my remaining time, the guide covers hotlines and helplines and the functions they serve, including domestic violence and sexual violence hotlines in Vermont, the elder fraud hotline previously presented on, 211, and the AAA's helpline. The guide also lays out the different kinds of professionals in our communities who are trained to listen to victims of elder abuse and exploitation, or those of us concerned for them, and help them identify and plan for next steps to reduce or eliminate the harms in question. So this includes case managers and social workers, domestic and sexual violence organizations, healthcare providers, religious leaders, and this includes professionals in our communities that are trained to provide culturally specific services like support for individuals with disabilities or members of the LGBTQ+ community. Then to the extent legal action is actually required to protect an individual on an ongoing basis or to recover damages that are done, the guide will also lay out advocacy organizations in Vermont that provide legal services that are relevant to addressing abuse and exploitation, from, for example, Legal Aid to Disability Rights Vermont to the Vermont Network's Legal Clinic. Finally, the guide also covers where to report different kinds of abuse and exploitation for government enforcement response. And this includes how to report to law enforcement and APS and why you'd report to one or the other or both. This also includes a flowchart developed by FAST on where to report a wide variety of kinds of financial exploitation whether it's perpetrated by a loved one, a caregiver, an investment advisor, or an unknown scammer. So please keep your eyes out for this resource. We're hoping to push it out in the next couple of weeks. We hope it will be helpful in synthesizing a lot of the information that's being presented today about what resources are available for those experiencing abuse and exploitation and those who care for them. And we look forward to publishing that. So thanks for the time, Tori.
Thank you very much. You're most welcome. And I very much look forward to that resource, and FAST will do whatever we can to disseminate that. Next, we have Elliot Greenblatt from the AARP of Vermont Fraud Watch.
Thank you. I want to begin by just overviewing what we see as our general task, and that is to make sure that Americans know what fraud is and how to deal with it. And that's really the goal of our program in a number of different ways. One is to address specific topics, but also to spend a lot of time working on the psychology of fraud and getting individuals to understand what the psychology behind the fraud is. Next slide, please. We serve as educators, watchdogs, and we provide resources. And as educators, we carve out a lot of time to work with small groups of people, large groups of people, one-on-one, to bring information to the general public. AARP issues fraud alerts that are sent out to people who subscribe to them from our website, tips on how to spot scams, and then what really motivates the fraudster, the criminal. We act as watchdogs. And I think it was mentioned this morning that on our website, we have a nationwide map, and it identifies fraud that's occurring around the country, either reported by individuals or reported by law enforcement. So you could, for instance, go to the map of the state of Vermont, look at where the fraud is taking place, and I'll guarantee that the locations that will come up will be Chittenden County, and probably Washington County is the major hotbeds. Home of state government, the largest population area in the state. And you can see what kinds of fraud have been reported. And then we have a number of volunteers. We have a dozen volunteers in our program. They monitor the local scene, but they also specialize in particular areas. We have a couple volunteers who spent a career working for IBM, and a couple others who worked in technology. We have 2 lawyers on the team, a couple medical people. So we try and specialize in one sense, but we also realize that it's necessary to be generalists when we're covering these topics. We provide active assistance. We have a support hotline, and we do a lot of presentations. Initially, these were live presentations that were done various venues around the state. We're now providing the service as virtual meeting applications through GoToMeeting, Zoom, and several other meeting software approaches. We also, it's not on the list, but we also collaborate with a number of different agencies. We work with the Federal Trade Commission at the national level, primarily, and we work with the Vermont Department of Financial Regulation, the Attorney General's Office, and most recently, we struck up a relationship with the Vermont Department of Labor. Next slide. We provide public information. We do it with the Vermont AARP website, its blog. We also have a Facebook page. 7 newspapers, actually it just became 8 newspapers around the state, are serving Vermonters by publishing a column that we write. Sadly, we have not been able to get newspapers in the northwestern part of the state to carry the column, or in the Rutland area, but we line the bottom of the state and all the way up to Newport on the east side of the state. And we get a lot of response from people who are reading those columns. We also do a community access television program called Mr. Scammer. It's produced by GNA-TTV in Sunderland, and it is distributed to the other channels around the state. Next slide. We do a number of different programs on fraud information and assistance, and just to give you a sense of what some of those might be, internet fraud has become probably the most requested area of information. So when we do a presentation, and we do this with all of our presentations, our goal is to present the situation, to give very specific examples of the situation so that people really know what they're looking at. It's not just a general glossing over, but we'll include live websites and emails as well as recorded ones. We then go through what you can do to identify these, what to do if you identify them, how to protect yourself, and then resources that go beyond that. Our goal is really to bring this message out to the entire community. We find that seniors are great, they're very responsive, and we get a lot of them at our presentations, but the group of people we really need to make contact with are care providers and family members. They act as the second set of eyes that will be looking over a senior's shoulder and asking the questions. The other reason why I think it's important for us to reach out beyond the senior population is that most people don't realize that the biggest demographic in terms of greatest number of frauds committed, it occurs against the 25 to 45-year-olds, not the seniors. Seniors are hit for a lot more money, but as far as the volume of scams, we find it's the younger crowd, the millennials in particular, who are being hit the hardest. And even though they don't have the resources that seniors do, that they are targeted because of the way they behave. So we're trying to reach out to everyone with the understanding that fraud is not discriminating. It doesn't discriminate against a particular group like seniors. A good con artist is a professional who's willing to steal the identity of a newborn or take money out of the pockets of a senior. So all the topics that have been discussed today are pretty much in our bailiwick as far as what we do. We make presentations to any size group. We're always looking for volunteers. We have 12 people that cover the state. Most of them are in the Chittenden to Washington County area. I happen to live in Brattleboro. I have another volunteer who lives in Wilmington half the year. So we need volunteers, and we need people who see this as a passion. And what we found is that almost everybody who has volunteered to work with our group volunteered because they knew someone who suffered as a victim of scams and fraud. Next slide, please. We try to promote our national website, which I've mentioned. That's the aarp.org/FraudWatch Network. Sometimes I hesitate to provide this number, the 877-908-3360 number is a call center that AARP has. We have two locations. One is in Colorado, one is in the state of Washington, just outside Seattle. And the reason why I hesitate to recommend this quite often is because this will end up referring you to another agency after you speak to a well-trained volunteer who will try to get at the heart of your issue. I prefer to have people contact the local agencies that may be able to actually deal with the issue. But what we found is a lot of seniors are not overly trusting of government or of organizations that they don't normally deal with. AARP has about 38 to 40 million members in the United States, which means the likelihood of a senior in Vermont being an AARP member is quite high. There are thousands of them. And since they already have a relationship with the organization through one of its programs, the likelihood of that senior making a call to an AARP representative who's going to discuss fraud and scams with them is a lot higher than, for instance, calling somebody at the Department of Financial Regulation. So we urge people who don't really feel comfortable speaking with government agencies, call AARP. We have the staff, we have the interest in helping you. So with that, I thank you for giving me the time to make my brief presentation.
Elliot, thank you so much for educating us about AARP. And next we have Leah Burdick from the Elder Law Project of Vermont Legal Aid.
Thank you, Tori. Can everybody hear me okay? Great. Okay. So as Tori mentioned, my name is Leah Burdick. I'm a staff attorney with the Elder Law Project, also known as the Senior Citizens Law Project at Vermont Legal Aid. We are a civil, legal, public organization, and we assist seniors in our project with a multitude of issues. If you could do the next slide, Tori. So this is kind of just a snapshot of some of our major areas. We help seniors with Social Security benefits and eligibility appeals, Medicaid issues, housing problems such as eviction, individual rights, including defeating, limiting, or changing guardianship. We also will help draft advanced planning documents, including power of attorney, advanced directives for healthcare, and we even do simple wills. And then most relevant to this topic is that we can assist with civil remedies for exploitation, abuse, and neglect, and victims of crime. And so that can include, next slide, Tori, if you wouldn't mind. Oh, I'm sorry. So first, actually, this was just some stats that I had pulled together with Gary Shaw. He was working with Senior Solutions in our coordinated community response to elder abuse, and we did a presentation where we brought some of these stats out, but it's pretty shocking, and considering that we know that this is very underreported. There's a lot, as we've heard in these other presentations, there's a lot of shame around being financially exploited and around scams, especially what we run into as if I'm assisting a senior with say a family member has stolen money from them. We are a client-driven organization. I cannot just go do what I think is best. I have to stick to what the client tells me that they would like to do. And more often than not, they don't want their family member prosecuted. That's one of the major barriers that I run into with financial exploitation and abuse. It's very, very difficult for a grandparent to imagine they feel like they're putting their child or their grandchild in jail. If, you know, so we run into, that's a big barrier. But a lot of times they say, well, I just want my money back. And I have to explain, well, I can't really make that happen unless there's consequences. So we run it, that's a big problem. But so just to kind of give you an idea, the question of why financial exploitation is so unreported is my opinion that the complex family dynamics that are involved is when it is a family member or a community member, there's so much shame, there's so much just difficulty facing up to the fact that a family member or a dear friend has stolen from you, that they really don't want to admit that. And so, as we've noticed with the romance scams that we heard about before, the romance scams, that it's very hard to let the picture of that person go. And reality is very difficult to face, especially when it's a caregiver or it's a family member. So next slide, Tori, thank you. So we really focus at Legal Aid on prevention. And because it's, as we note, it's very difficult to recover from financial exploitation when, one, the client does not want it to be referred to law enforcement, or they don't want to necessarily cooperate with an investigation. And so we really focus on drafting strong power of attorney documents and making sure that the agent under the power of attorney understands their obligations under the law, that there are fiduciary duties that you can be punished for if you, do not fulfill those duties. We also identify vulnerabilities in a client's financial makeup. So if we educate them on protecting their identity, we've created materials, and this is really important, that we've created materials that are specific to our clientele who often do not have access to the internet, who have difficulty reading because their eyesight is going, who don't understand technology very well, don't have access to it. So we provide a document, like a checklist that has phone numbers only, and it's in big font. And I cannot stress this enough for all of these wonderful organizations that have mountains upon mountains of materials to give to seniors. Please make sure that they can actually see and use what you're giving them. So, when I was researching how to create this document for my clients for protecting them from fraud or reacting to being exploited, I went on to the, FTC website, .gov, and I saw these brochures and I thought, all right, well, I can use that. They're all in 10-point font. Nobody can read that. So we really at Legal Aid really take the time to think about, can the senior actually use this brochure or piece of paper or whatever that I'm giving them? So we also assist with long-term care Medicaid planning to avoid giving away assets and risking eligibility issues and penalties. That's a big one where, a senior, if they want to deed their home away, that's important to know that's not good under Medicaid law. So if I'm up on my time, oh, no, there we go. Sorry, Tori skipped ahead a little bit. And then we also take the time to educate clients on common scams. So if I hear in my interview with a client that there is a friend or a neighbor or a child or someone that is new in their life that they're considering making an agent under a power of attorney, or they list some sort of concerns, at all times I am very clear to say, you don't have to do anything you don't want to do. And I'm here to tell you that. So I always keep my eyes and ears open for concerning phrases such as, well, I hadn't heard from them for a long time. And then they said they needed money to help me. They were going to help me. And so I gave them my car. And so, and then I try to hook them up with Senior Solutions and other organizations, as Carol mentioned, to bridge that gap so that they're not so dependent on a random person that shows up being their savior. And then, so for responding to abuse, exploitation, and neglect, so these are like temporal concepts, right? Like prevention, we try to stop it before it happens. Responding is more difficult. We can, in our toolbox, we can revoke a power of attorney if an agent under power of attorney is violating their fiduciary duties. We can file a request for an accounting with the court during a guardianship proceeding, or for if we are moving forward with having the court review a power of attorney document, and looking towards civil remedies and civil penalties for, basically their violation of fiduciary duties. We can file for a complaint for relief from abuse under Title 33, the Vulnerable Adult Statute, or Title 15, and explore other ways of civil remedies. We can work with other organizations such as Adult Protective Services, the AAAs, the Vermont Long-Term Care Ombudsman, in particular for what's going on in a facility, because ombudsmans work very closely with residents in a facility, and local law enforcement, and certainly the prosecutors. So we really do try to put our, at all times that we have to be aware of, is this what the client wants? If it's not what the client wants, then I can't really go any farther than that. And so recently I've had a couple of referrals from family members who they're frustrated because they're finding that they're lost in the many, many wonderful organizations that are here to help, but they're finding that they go for the nuclear option, which is, I want to file for guardianship because I'm worried about my mom or my dad or my uncle or whatever, and I don't know who else to turn, so I'm just going to try to strip away their rights. And so we really try to explain very carefully That is not something that legal aid can assist you with. We really try to avoid that at all times. And if we are appointed or if we are representing someone under guardianship, they still have a lot of rights that people don't necessarily think they do. But at all times, we really try to honor the client and listen to what they want, offer our best advice. But at the end of the day, I can't make anybody do anything. So as I said, that's one of the issues that we have when it comes to movement on some of these cases, is that the client just wants the money back and they want it to all go away. But that can be impossible if they don't want to move forward and cooperate with the investigation. So, and next slide. Oh, I think that's it. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Leah. I appreciate that. And next we have Bill Kerrigan from the Department of Financial Regulation.
Hey, good afternoon, Tori. Thank you for the opportunity to be here to speak to the folks today about what we do at DFR. And we're not the Department of Financial Exploitation. That's going to give people the wrong idea. We don't exploit anybody. No problem. So
Bill, you're muted. There we go.
yeah, I gave half my presentation to myself. I wanted to say thank you, Tori, for giving us the opportunity to come and speak a little bit about what we do and how we help folks. The Department of Financial Regulation consists of 4 different divisions. We have banking, insurance, securities. I'm the deputy of the securities division, and then captive insurance. And 3 of us are public-facing divisions: banking, insurance, and securities. And essentially, we're responsible for the regulation and oversight of, on the banking side, for example, state-registered banks and credit unions, as well as a plethora of other different areas, mortgage banking, payday lenders, different things like that they handle. The insurance division, obviously, auto insurance, life insurance, annuities, certain types of annuities, and different areas like that, and also the agents that sell those products. The securities division, we're responsible for the oversight of all the broker-dealers, the broker-dealer agents, investment advisors, and all their reps. And just to give you an idea, in Vermont, we're a pretty small state. We have like roughly 625,000 people. People are usually shocked at how many registered broker-dealer agents there are in the state. There's 115,000. So essentially, there's 1 broker-dealer agent registered here for every 6 people that we have in the state. And those are some of the folks that we look at. When I talk about the department, I like to mention the fact that we are really the only state agency that touches every Vermonter in one way, shape, or form. Right? If they have money, they're using a bank or a credit union. They all have some kind of insurance. And if they have some sort of investment, whether it be a 401k, 457, whatever, that kind of falls under our jurisdiction. So we really do touch everybody in the state. Some of the things that we do, I mean, I've had the fortunate experience to present either to or with a lot of the folks that are on this panel today. We do a lot of stuff with AARP. Obviously with Cove, we've done a lot of work with Cove in the past. Carol, I was down at your location with the governor about a year ago. So, we kind of do some similar things to what Elliott and AARP do. We go all around the state providing seminars on scams and frauds and how to keep yourself from becoming a victim. And one of the other things that we are very, very proud of in the state is we were the first jurisdiction in the country to implement a protection of vulnerable adults from financial exploitation model rule. And it's in our regulation, and it's VSR 8-4. And essentially what that does, it's a mandatory reporting requirement for broker-dealers, investment advisors, and qualified individuals to advise us, and it's mandatory reporting. So they report to us and also APS when they see a potential issue of financial exploitation. And the real the crux of this, and any of the law enforcement folks on the line, they know this, probably better than anybody. Once the money's gone, it's gone for the most part. You're not able to get it back because it's either left the country or it's gone to somebody who's already utilized it for something nefarious or what have you. But what this allows us to do is put a hold on the transaction. So the money can't move, which is the biggest thing, and it can't leave the firm, and it gives us time to do an in-depth investigation and figure out what's going on. And if we need to bring action against the individuals that are attempting to take advantage of the seniors, it gives us that opportunity to do that. And we have a number of these cases. I mean, I have a case right now that I'm working on with the Secret Service, and also the U.S. Attorney's Office is involved, where there's somebody from Toronto, Canada, who reached into Vermont and attempted to scam a Vermont couple out of $100,000. And the money's frozen right now, but we feel very comfortable that we're going to be able to keep that money from moving. There are just so many opportunities like that, a small state, but there's a lot of these kind of situations that come up. I like to refer to these as the fraud du jour. It's like whatever the hot thing is right now is where the scammers are trying to put their efforts. Just a little of an aside to that is, I think folks will probably be kind of surprised at this. Since March, there have been close to 250,000 new domain names registered, right? Internet domain names using the terms COVID-19 or coronavirus in the title. We've got a task force at NASA right now that's looking into all of these. We've stopped a lot of them. Now, obviously, they're not all fraudulent, but there's a good percentage of them that are, and they're just after people's money. Scammers make money one way, and that's separating you from yours. So we try to help people to understand what it is that they need to know about entities that are reaching out to them. You heard the FBI talk about that. We deal with them. I've got a case right now with one of the agents that we're working on where a couple of folks came in and have taken advantage of somebody down in the southern part of the state. Unfortunately, there's no shortage of people doing stupid things. I guess for some of us, that's kind of job security. But, we just want to let folks know that Department of Financial Regulation is here to help you. Each one of our divisions has a consumer unit that helps with customer complaints. Well, until this all hit, we were all in the same building, so we could just kind of walk across the hall and work with each other. But even though we're remote right now, we haven't missed a beat as far as our ability to take care of Vermonters, as well as our registered entities out there. So we're here to help, and we are a state agency, probably the one that most people haven't heard of and aren't familiar with us. We have ways that folks can file complaints online if they would like to do that. The website is www.dfr.vermont.gov. And they can go out there, and it's a very intuitive website. They can go through each of the different divisions. And once we get back to where we can start doing things face-to-face again, we also offer on-site sessions that we do on scams and frauds with all the divisions. And we'd look forward to, coming out and meeting with any groups that would like to hear about ways they can keep from becoming a victim. And that being said, Tori, again, thank you for everything that you do and everybody else on this call does. I mean, we've all kind of worked together in one way, shape, or form. And it's good to know that we've got this many resources available for folks that have the best interest of seniors and those vulnerable folks at heart, and we're all here to help. So thank you.
Thank you, Bill. I'm sorry for the typo. I'm not sure. We could change it to Department of Investigating Financial Exploitation. Galen is posting the DFR website in the chat function, so you can pull it from that. And this slide, I promise, will be corrected in the G Drive. So my apologies.
Tori, if that's the worst thing that happens today, it's a pretty good day.
Right, exactly. And so we have 2 remaining speakers. I know we're at the end of our time, but I want Melissa Conley from Adult Protective Services to have a chance, and then Philip Marshall will end the conference for us. So please, Melissa, take it away.
Thanks, Tori. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Melissa Conley. I'm the Assistant Director with Adult Protective Services. I work in central office, and I supervise the intake unit, and I am the one responsible for doing the screening of reports that we receive. So APS, for those of you that don't know, is the primary unit of state government responsible for investigating allegations of abuse, neglect, and exploitation under Title 33 here in Vermont. We are a unit of 16 folks, 11 of which are home-based investigators who cover the entire state doing investigations. I threw a little statistic in here. This is from 2019. APS received over 3,800 reports that resulted in 750 investigations. So we're busy, certainly. In addition to investigating, APS also maintains the Vermont Adult Abuse Registry. So for folks who are substantiated, they go on to that Adult Abuse Registry, which is something that APS maintains as well. So for folks who need to check that registry, that's a task that APS maintains as well. So I realized today into just mandatory reporters, but for folks interested in making a report to APS, if you're someone that has a suspicion or you yourself are experiencing any type of abuse, neglect, or exploitation, we want to hear from you. And for those of you that are mandatory reporters, as you see here, there is an expectation that you're reporting those things to APS within 48 hours of receiving that information. I have the ways to report here on the slide. We prefer to hear from you electronically. And part of that is because if you report on our website or send us an email, you have a record of that report coming in that you can maintain for yourself or share with folks within your agency or supervisor if that's something that's applicable to you. But we do still, of course, receive reports via phone and are happy to take those as well. I just want to touch briefly on important pieces. If you are filing a report with us, it's really important that we have contact information for you as the reporter. You're the person who we are going to rely on for information and may need to do some follow-up as well. So it's really important that we have contact information for you as the reporter. We of course want to know who the victim is, contact information for them if you have it, what makes them vulnerable. So when we're looking at reports that come into APS, we're looking at two things. We're looking at whether they meet the statute definition of being vulnerable. Again, that's defined for us right in chapter 69 of Title 33. So do they meet that statute definition of being vulnerable? And then is the maltreatment that they're experiencing, does that meet the definition as well? So again, the statute defines for us abuse, neglect, and exploitation, of course, which includes financial exploitation for the topic of the day. So that's really what we're looking at. Does the vulnerable adult meet that definition, and does the maltreatment meet that definition as well? So if you have information about what you think makes the victim vulnerable, we want to hear that in the report as well. If there's any safety considerations that are important for our investigators to know, that's important information for us to have. If you know of other people in the victim's life that can support the investigative process, if there's a guardian, powers of attorney, those kinds of things, any important details that are helpful for APS are just really critical to be part of that report that you're filing with us. A point that I do want to make is that APS is not an emergency service. So if you have real concern about a vulnerable adult, law enforcement or 911 should be your first contact. And then of course, filing a report with APS after that. As the reporter, you will receive written follow-up about what sort of those next steps are that are happening with the report that you're filing. And one piece that I also want to add is, along with that written correspondence, you may get a call from someone in the intake unit offering up resources. So if it's something that APS, for whatever reason, is not going to be investigating, we really do our best to make sure that there are some resources or referrals that are being made to both the reporter and to the victim if we as APS can't help. Of course, you've heard from many of those partners that we refer out to today. The AAA agencies are a big one. So that's important to know, that if APS isn't going to investigate, we're hopeful that we can provide some resource information for you as the reporter that you can share with the victim as well. So our contact information is down here. Again, ways to report. And I think, as you heard earlier, report, report, report. When in doubt, report, and let us figure out if it meets our definitions. So thank you so much for the time today.
Thank you, Melissa. And I want to thank all of our panelists. I'm going to turn this over to Philip for our last words. I'm just going to share this slide that Marichelle Vaught from Cove created as a way to highlight how we all work together. So thank you all for a great day, and I'm going to turn it over to Philip.
Thank you, Tori. And thank you so much for everything you've done in terms of guiding us together. I'm going to just see, just a second. Can you still hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can.
Okay, excellent. I've got I've got my phone as a backup, so it's got a little bit of echo. You know what, Tori, you mentioned that we're the rock stars, and I've been working for so long. I spent a year with the Barry Granite industry, and I thought they were the rock stars. And you know what, they are the rock stars, and in part because they help us with our legacy, but also because of their capacity. But that's exactly what you've got folks together today to do. To, in essence, both help us with our life and legacy as rock stars, but not just these individual random rock stars. What you realize is that we've got these constellations, and that they have relationships, as you've displayed here. And I don't know what constellation we're going to call this, but I think it's something to do with an elder justice constellation. And that we're connecting these constellations in an amazing way. Some are really guiding stars, others circle around and are trying to figure out this relationship, knowing that they're all grounded by the gravity of elder abuse, and that we need to rise up and address this. And I'll just go on a little bit, because I know last year somebody said, "I'm talking Maine," and from where your grandmother's house is, which is now owned by your father's third wife, who basically got it gifted. And the message was that I'm not running from, I'm running to. I'm not going to run away from this. And neither, I know, neither is anybody here. And so we had APS and law enforcement involved, and we had one of Senator Collins' staffers there. And there were some questions after, and somebody goes, "Well, what should we do?" And the staffer said, "We should do exactly what we're doing today. We should get together and talk." Well, and that was just me talking. And that was just one star, right? What you and colleagues have done today is just amazing. And you know, I go from border to border, coast to coast to coast. And I've been with a lot of states, and I'm so proud of Vermont that, you know, I called home from the 60s, and what you're doing. And just to play hardball, I provided some, if you will, testimony recently. And I had to say, with reference to the state at hand, is such and such a state will not be safe for seniors until. And sadly, we can point to different states that, for various reasons, do not have not raised their own red flags, saying we know about what you're up to. And there are a lot of states that are targeted because they're easy targets. And it's obvious Vermont is safe for seniors and society. And you're making it so. And the presentations today are just amazing and fast tracking. And I know there's been quite a bit in terms of intervention and response to fraud, to other forms of abuse, but you've been able to couple them together with preventive practices. And now I'm in Utah. What I was going to be on a basically national tour, going to AAAs and going to senior centers and knowing that our community resources that serve help, especially when they articulate with those who save. And we're doing it we're doing it virtually, but that's what you're doing every day in Vermont. So I'm very excited about that. And, you know, I think there's so much to say, but I think I'll just pick up on some of Amber's thoughts just briefly. I taught for 40 years, and I know that seniors are 81 and seniors are 18. You know, I taught university. Age about habits, about resilience, about so much, really has as much applicability to all of us as it does to seniors. And I think even if it's self-serving, that so many of the skills that have been gathered here today can be applied to any generation that can then in turn pick up the phone and call their grandparent and call their loved ones and inform them based on their own experience. And it sort of reminds me of the Disabilities Act, with Disabilities Act that just turned of 1990, which just turned 30. And you know, the ADA is not just a good idea, it's the law. And the same can be said for legislation in terms of elder justice, but also the ADA helps everybody. It's what we've learned after 30 years, and elder justice is young, so it's taken a while, but I think we're going to find that just like the ADA has helped generations and individuals that do not have, if you will, disabilities, and elder justice help in that way. And sort of looking at what's been presented through this lens, and hearing that scammers are scamming, if you will, millennials as much as elders, that we are all going to benefit from the efforts today all along the way. So I so appreciate what everybody has presented, that it's been curated, that it's been documented, and that this is just one step along the path of elder justice. Thank you all.